Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Wildlife Wednesday Roundup. I'm your host, Tenley Thompson, and we've got some great videos to show you from all over the greater Yellowstone ecosystem this month. Let's start by checking in with Sarah Ernst, who had some pretty spectacular footage of wolves pulling down a bison.
Hello, this is Sarah Ernst, and I've just come back from a snowshoe at Bradley Taggart Lake. I'm here in Grand Teton National Forest to talk to you about this absolutely incredible encounter we had with the Junction Butte Pack in Yellowstone a little bit earlier on in the winter. We have been watching the Junction Butte Pack quite a bit this winter. They're one of the more visible packs in the park. And they're a pretty large pack too, numbering over 30 wolves at their peak at the beginning of the winter. Having a lot of numbers is very important when you're hunting bison. If you're looking at wolves and the type of prey that they go for, elk is really the perfect ratio between risk and reward. Go after a deer, it might weigh like 150, maybe 200 pounds. If you're trying to feed a family of 8 wolves, which is the average pack size in Yellowstone, that 150-pound deer is not going to go very far. It's like going to one of our favorite restaurants in town in Jackson, maybe local, and ordering a slider or two to feed your entire family of 8. Just not going to get you that far. Going after bison or moose is pretty risky, especially going after bison. Many times wolves will be wounded or even killed when they go after bison. So that's pretty high risk. Also high reward. A bison weighs around 1,000 to 1,200 pounds for a female, up to 2,000 pounds for a bull. But the risk is so high that it's not normally in the menu for many of our greater Yellowstone ecosystem wolves. Elk is just a perfect ratio of risk versus reward. There's enough meat on a 500-pound cow elk or a 700-pound bull elk to be worth the risk to the wolves of either getting kicked, in the case of both the cows and the bulls, which can crack a wolf's skull with one kick of their hoof, or and potentially for a bull getting skewered by those antlers on their head from middle of August to the end of the winter, where they still have antlers on their head. So we don't often in this ecosystem see wolves going after bison. In fact, in my 10 years of guiding, this is only the 3rd time I've seen wolves successfully kill a bison. The success rate when wolves hunt bison is less than 10%. In comparison with elk, it's about approximately 1 out of 7 attempts will succeed over average. The problem with killing bison, if you're wolves, is that their hide and their skin is so thick that they can't come in and choke them as they may be able to do with a deer or an elk. They just can't get their jaws around the trachea hard enough to cut off the air supply to the animal's brain. So when you're hunting bison as a wolf, you're really killing them through stress and blood loss, and just trying to bring them down long enough to really begin feeding to the point where the bison can't get up again. I'm a wolf fan for sure, but I have to say it is pretty brutal when wolves go after bison. There's no easy way to kill a bison with your teeth when you're a 90-pound animal. That would be like us humans going after an elephant and killing an elephant with our teeth. It's just challenging, and when we're watching, even though I love wolves, it's hard not to be on the side of the bison. So in this case, there was a cow bison, a couple of other cows, a couple of big bulls, and they were defending her against the wolves for hours. Bison's response to threats, generally on the flight or fight scale, tends to be pretty high on the fight side. So their natural instinct is to defend the vulnerable members of their herd against predators. As we watched, there was this one moment where, after hours of defending their friend from the wolves, the rest of the bison suddenly changed their mind. I've never seen anything like that before. It was incredible to watch. They changed their mind and they bolted and they ran away from the injured bison and then just started eating. But For me, this is real. Being able to see large predators bring down large prey in this huge intact ecosystem, what we call the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, or the GYE, 22 million acres of wild land. There's not many places left in the world where we can see large predators bring down large prey. And although it was difficult for us to watch, it really was an honor for those of us who love wilderness as deeply as I do, and who love that wild character of this place that we're lucky enough to live and work in. The wolves were able to feed on this dead bison for several days after they brought her down, but they're always hungry, and there's also scavengers out there that will take chunks of the carcass, so within a few days they were out there hunting again.
Thanks, Sarah. So obviously we do understand that sometimes that footage can be difficult to watch, but it is nature, and we think it's very important that we bring all that the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem has to offer, pleasant or unpleasant, interesting of course, to you guys every month. In the meantime, let's check in with a big favorite for everybody on Wildlife Wednesday with our guide Laura, and she's got some thoughts on the new emergence of bears that's coming out, and of course what we need to do to keep ourselves safe in bear country.
Hey guys, this is Laura. It's spring, and you know what that means. The bears are starting to wake up and come out of their dens, which can be an exciting time to perhaps see a bear in the wild from a safe distance of at least 100 yards. But if we're traveling into the backcountry, there are certain practices we need to go by to stay safe. So let me outline a couple rules that we need to follow if we're traveling into bear country. So let's see, our bear and our wolf came through here. Oh, they fell in a little hole. That was probably the bear because he's so big. And then they came straight on by here. Oh, look at that track. Whoa. And then went on away from us. First of all, when we're traveling through bear country, let's travel together. If we're in a group of 3 people or more, we're far less likely to come into conflict with a bear in the first place. Secondly, when we are traveling through dense stands of timber or through willows, let's make some noise. Let's talk to each other in that group, or maybe sing a song so we don't accidentally surprise any wild animals. Many conflicts with bears arise when a bear's surprised when we come around a tree or come around a bush, and they might try to defend themselves by using their big claws or big teeth. Of course, especially if it's a female with a baby, like a mama bear and her cub. Third off, if we do see a bear, let's not run. Bears are a type of predator, so if we run away, that might evoke a predatory response, which means the bear might want to chase us. So we'll back away slowly, talk nicely to the bear, and we might have to circumnavigate the area to get where we need to go. So say like back to the car. Of course, we don't want to disrupt that bear any further, so we'll just choose a new route to go around its area. As always, fourthly, we want to keep all of our human foods away from bears. Food can be a great attractant. So, as usual, let's just not accidentally feed a bear. When I'm traveling through the backcountry, I might carry a can of bear spray. Bear spray is a non-lethal deterrent, so kind of like a pepper spray or a mace. So lastly, let's break down the 2 types of conflict we could get into with a bear and how to react to those types. So on one hand, we have our defensive bear that we snuck up on by accident and is trying to defend itself. On the other hand, we have our predatory bear who sees us as food or is interested in one of our food sources. So such as if we're hunting and we have an elk carcass on the ground, which a bear is really interested in eating. We treat these 2 types of bears in different ways. although we don't necessarily look at the species of the bear in deciding. And that's because we might not be able to differentiate a grizzly bear from a black bear, especially at a moment's notice. So let's just treat them in the same ways, depending on their behaviors. So on one hand, we have that defensive bear. Signs that a bear is being defensive could be charging at us, maybe audible cues like huffing, blowing, or barking, jaw popping. Its ears are pinned back, kind of like an angry dog. It might be slapping the ground or hopping. Now, all of which are signs that the bear has been spooked and is giving us a sign to back away. But if backing away or maybe even deploying our bear spray doesn't work and the bear still is charging after us with a fast approach, we might need to play dead. And that's to minimize the risk or the threat to that bear. So that might mean, of course, talking nice, backing away slowly, or perhaps after deploying our can of bear spray, laying down on the ground to play dead. So to defend ourselves, we might lay down. We don't want to, make any fast movements towards the bear, but maybe defend ourselves by wrapping our hands around the back of our head and our elbows around our face. But of course, that's our last resort. And when you're down in that position, I know that's really scary, but you definitely want to just stay still. And maybe after pushing you a couple times, the bear might just go away. At least that's the hope. But on the other hand, if you have a predatory bear, one that actually sees you or your food as their food source, then you'd react in a different way. Instead of playing dead, you'd want to fight back against the bear. So that could mean punching it in the nose. That could mean kicking it if it's on top of you. Of course, again, this is all last resort. To tell if a bear is preying on you, it might be that you have a food source that the bear is interested in. Maybe the bear has been curious. Maybe it's been stalking you. All bad things. So we'll just stand our ground and fight back against that type of bear. But again, I think overall bear attacks are really rare. It's not something that we hear about often in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, but we just need to be prepared when heading out into the backcountry. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Be safe out there and have a happy spring. Oh, he must have fallen into a little hole.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was wondering.
It must have been warmer at the time because we're not breaking through.
No.
Wow, look at those claws. Oh, here's a hind foot. Oh. Wow.
Thanks, Laura. Really important information to know when you're out there in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And definitely bear tracks are abounding. I love how that bear was falling through the snow. What's been happening is it's been really cold in the mornings, and then as it warms up throughout the day, that snow becomes what we locally call kind of rotten, and it gets really hard for heavy animals to be able to stay afloat. But great for tracking opportunities for sure. And did you all see those wolf tracks that were in there as well? Pretty awesome cross-country ski tour that Laura was leading there when they found those. Next, I thought it'd be fun to check in with Josh Metton from last year, this particular episode of Wildlife Wednesday is our 1-year anniversary that we've been on the air. And one of my favorite videos we ever did was actually one of our first. And that's Josh Metton checking in with the sage-grouse lek.
Good morning, Josh here with Eco-Tour Adventures. I want to show you this sage-grouse lek we're on down south of Pinedale, Wyoming. Every March and April, sage-grouse get together in what's called a lek, where all the males gather around and they display in hopes of mating with females. We're about 400 yards away from this lek with over 30 grouse on it right now. Check it out. So it looks like there's one female walking around, and all of these males are trying to get her attention. She's the one that doesn't have the flared tail. Over to the left. She's just eating away. The male's spinning around trying to get her attention. Nothing. Come back. Come back. Oh, there's a battle. There's a battle going on right now. These guys are side to side, sizing each other up, trying to intimidate each other. Sometimes they can actually severely injure or even kill each other. Full length of the Wind River Range out there.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Josh. And thanks to everybody for celebrating our 1-year anniversary with us. Always a pleasure to be with you. Now, guys, we did have one last video for you today, but technical difficulties. So we're going to have to play it for you maybe next month, maybe in the coming week or so. On our Facebook page. So keep an eye open for that. But in the meantime, I think I can make it up for you, and that we have a big giveaway going on. And if you'd like to be a part of it, there's a chance to win 2 very cool things. The first, of course, is this awesome photograph of grizzly bear 399 taken by our owner and guide, Taylor Phillips. And the second is taken by our very own Josh Metton, that gentleman you just saw, our naturalist with those sage-grouse there of elk out on the elk refuge. To win either one of these photos, all you have to do is go on our Instagram and sign up in that link for our newsletter, which we promise is not spam. It's lots of scientific facts and videos and fun things about wildlife. You'll actually really enjoy our newsletter. We're not trying to sell you anything. And then go ahead and tag 3 friends in the comments, and one winner per print will be selected on Wednesday, April 14th. 1 entry per person, per platform and post. So if you want to win, definitely go ahead and tag your friends here on Facebook or on Instagram. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter and you'll get your chance. Those photos are stunning in person, and I'm a little jealous I want to win one for one of those lucky winners. So pretty awesome if you're interested in that. And then of course it is time for our trivia question of the month. Now, our sponsored trivia question is from our EcoTour Adventures store, and it's been a while since we featured anything I've made, and so by request, everybody wanted to see something that I have on the store. These Grand Teton National Park pillows are made by me and an amazing sewer who helps me out with a lot of the fine sewing here in Jackson Hole, Nancy Brumsfed. If you'd like to have a piece of Grand Teton or Yellowstone in your own home, we have lots of different pillows available on our store, as well as gifts, ceramics, all sorts of wonderful natural history books. We're getting some awesome new books coming in, awesome steelware, hats, all sorts of fun things. And 100% of the proceeds of our EcoTour Adventures store, as those of you who follow us know, go back to our guides and go towards supporting them. So if you've enjoyed the program today and you want to support all the guides who go out and shoot all this video on their free time for you all to enjoy, you can certainly check that out. There's also a tip option by popular demand on the store as well. So if you just want to throw, $3 to $5 at one of these guides for some great footage for you to enjoy every month, feel free to do that as well. But of course, we are happy to offer this to anybody who wants to watch it, because we love the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and it's our way of giving back and showing everybody how wonderful it is. Okay, so our trivia question of last month came to us from guide Laura. That was the one talking about bear safety in those bear tracks a couple videos ago. And if you want to win this month's trivia question, hang on just one second. We're going to answer last month's first. Go ahead and answer in the comment section if you know the answer to the question. But this one we've already given out the prize for. And the question was, and this should be very easy for you guys. Oh no, technical malfunction again. Gosh, we're having some trouble with some of our videos today, but it was an image, of course, of a sage-grouse. And after that sage-grouse video, hopefully you guys knew what that bird was and you were able to identify it last month. We did have a lot of correct responses, which made me really pleased, just because sage-grouse are such an imperiled species in the western United States and perilously close to being listed on the endangered species list. However, a grand partnership between the western states, the federal government, ranchers, businessmen, and just regular citizens has allowed grouse to have a little bit of a growth period. They're doing a little bit better than they were 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a wonderful example of partnership that we hope can be spread to other species. So sorry I don't get to see that cool video of grouse that Laura took. But in the meantime, we've got this month's trivia question. Okay, so to win a gift card, $10 gift card to our EcoTour Adventures store, all you have to do is answer the question correctly in our comment section. And we will wait a week before drawing our winner so that everybody who isn't watching this live gets a chance too. Now, if you are watching this in a group or it's been shared by a friend, you do have to go back to the EcoTour Adventures page to the original video to comment to win, because we can't necessarily see all those comments oftentimes that are on shared posts. Okay, so to win the $10 gift card, I need to know what species of bird is this? Now, I am going to accept one entry per person for the correct identification of the bird, but I will also accept a correct, another entry. You get a chance for 2 entries if you tell me how old this bird is. And if you're an EcoTour Adventures guide, not only do you don't get to win, but I'd be really bummed if you don't know how old this bird is. So there's a little bit of trivia there for our guides who are watching, and for our avid wildlife watchers and bird watchers. Tell me what species of bird it is, but then I also want to know, for those of you who feel that you're kind of expert birders, how old it is based on how it looks. All right, anybody have any guesses? Go ahead and put those in the comments section. We will go ahead and we will pick a winner about a week from now. We'll go ahead and inform you via DM if you are a big winner, and then we'll go ahead and tell you what bird it is and how old it is and how on earth I would know that, or any birder could know that. next month. So go ahead and take a look. Now I will give you the one hint, that eye stripe over the eyes is key for determining age. Hopefully that'll help you all out a little bit. Pretty cool, huh? All right, awesome. Now it's time for my very favorite part of our Wildlife Wednesday broadcast, which is I'm here to answer your questions live. So if you have a question for a biologist or a naturalist about the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem or wildlife or anything sort of in the environmental sciences or natural sciences or geology or history or any of that sort of stuff, go ahead and write in the comment section what your questions are. I'll try to get to them one by one. And if I don't know your answer, we promise we'll go ahead and we'll find out for you. Sometimes I get stumped, you guys. Sometimes I don't always necessarily know. But I'm going to go ahead and go in order by the questions that were asked, and we'll go ahead and go through them one by one. So bear with me. I've got my iPad here. And so when you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at our questions. Let's see. Linda asks, happy spring. Any sign of grizzly bear 399 yet? Linda, no, but we wouldn't expect to see her maybe quite yet. Grizzly bear emergence in general, sort of has an order, which is to say the oldest, largest males tend to emerge from the den first, followed by older females without cubs and younger males, followed by all bears without cubs, followed by bears with cubs. So in terms of the order of when we're expecting to see her, grizzly bears emerge sooner than black bears, but by the time females with cubs come out, a lot of black bears are already out as well. We would not anticipate seeing her quite yet, but hopefully relatively soon. The other thing to remember about grizzly bear 399, if you're a watcher of this show and you know a little bit about her as a bear, is she does not do things the way bears are supposed to do them, and so she constantly catches us by surprise, and so I wouldn't be terribly surprised if she showed up a little bit early. On the other hand, having 4 cubs, I wonder, in terms of trying to keep all those guys fed, it might make sense to hibernate a little later. Now, if she had gone into hibernation a little skinny, then she absolutely would have woken up early with those cubs. But because she went into hibernation very, very fat, there's no real rush for her to come out when we don't have any fresh green growth yet, and not a lot of food for her to eat. These big, big male bears, nothing keeping them in the den. So we do have this emergence of bears that is coming out. You saw those tracks with Laura. Mostly male bears would be my expectation. Mostly male grizzlies that we're seeing at the moment. But give it a couple weeks and hopefully we'll have our first sightings of her. We'll certainly keep you posted, and hopefully we'll be amongst the first to know and let everybody know how she and her quadruplets are doing. Thank you very much for that question. Let's see what else we've got here. Tracy asks, are you still only offering private tours? Thinking June 8th. Well, Tracy, I hope you do come out and see us. And the short answer is no. We're going back to group tours, and we're very, very excited about that. So we will be running private-only programs until May 2nd, and then after that, May 1st, and then after that, we will have group programs available. So if you want to go out with us in the next 2 or 3 weeks, they are still private-only programs for now, and that's because Teton County just opened up general vaccination, which is to say all of our guides are now going to get the opportunity to get vaccinated. We do want to ensure all of them are able to get both of their shots or the single shot if they've got the Johnson & Johnson, and then that 2-week period after that to make sure that they've developed proper antibodies. So we will hopefully have everybody all vaccinated and ready to go for our summer season starting on May 1st. So yes, we do have group trips available. We still, of course, have private trips too. We want to allow people who are nervous going out into groups to definitely be able to be on a private program. And we also want to allow options for folks that are a little bit more budget conscious. Now, I will tell you, of course, we are going to follow all of the guidelines for both Teton County and the federal government. A lot of people have been asking us about masks. As long as Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone National Park tell us we need to be wearing masks, and Teton County tells us we need to be wearing masks, we will continue to do so. Safety of our guests and of our guides is our absolute first priority, and that's by far and away the most important thing. And we definitely want to be supportive of everyone in the population who has not had the chance to get vaccinated or for whatever reason is unable to be vaccinated, because not everybody can get a vaccine, right? And so it's really important to be respectful and thoughtful of that as well. So hopefully that answers your question. We're super, super excited to go back to group tours. It's been a year, you guys, but we're finally going to get a chance to get back a little bit more towards normal. So pretty exciting about that. And then let's see here. Susan says, happy anniversary. Thank you, Susan. We appreciate that. Let's see here. Mark, I think I kind of just answered this, but have any restrictions loosened up at all for those traveling and or staying inside Jackson Hole or Yellowstone National Parks? Like I said, we just here in Teton County opened up that anybody can go now and get a vaccine. I think it's over 16 or over 18. I can't remember exactly what the rules are. So I anticipate some of those restrictions starting to loosen up in the coming weeks as we're able to vaccinate our local population so that they can be safe. We are inundated, of course, with visitors here in Jackson Hole every year. We love it and we love having you all here. But we definitely want to make sure we can keep our locals safe as well. So I think we're on that direction. We're getting that way, but we definitely are continuing to have masks in public places. But of course, our restaurants are certainly open and available, and all of our indoor, we don't really have any major restrictions. I think you can't have more than 500 people gathering. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think that's the current rule. I have to do my research. But yeah, if you're coming to visit, you certainly can get into restaurants and places like that, and you can certainly get out in nature and see some wildlife. So we hope we see you all soon. In the meantime, let's see what else we've got here. Susan says, bought that wolf book for my brother. Susan, I am about halfway through that amazing, amazing book. Maybe Maddie can link to it from our website. Brand new compendium on the gray wolf and Yellowstone wolves. Really, really fascinating book. That was our featured item of the month last month, and I hope you all get a chance to do that. I just finished talking to the publisher for my other really big favorite new book, which is the Yellowstone Atlas, and it looks like we're going to be able to get some copies of that on our web store as well. That's been a kind of a hard book to get our hands on, so hopefully more news on that coming soon. But yeah, very, very cool, and thanks so much for your support. We really appreciate you supporting the guides. Let's see here. Dawn asks, is there a place to buy when in Jackson? Yeah, Dawn, just buy on our website and we deliver locally. Or you can come by our office and pick it up. We love that too. We love saying hi to everybody, and we love all of our repeat Wildlife Wednesday viewers. So yeah, we absolutely do deliver locally. Those pillows I used to sell all over the Great Yellowstone ecosystem. They were sold in all of the Yellowstone National Park Delaware North stores and Grand Teton Lodge Company stores and Signal Mountain stores in Grand Teton National Park. But I've taken a little break from selling those pillows everywhere, and instead they're available exclusively on the EcoTour Adventures website. So if you want one, that's where you can get it. Let's see here. This is awesome. Jennifer says, I was on a tour with Laura and she was pointing at a fox or something, and I was looking in the wrong spot and showed her what was moving, and it was a sage-grouse. Wish I'd seen her video. Jennifer, that might be the same sage-grouse, because Laura, of course it was Laura's video. If you're curious, that was our trivia question of the month last month. So just go to the end of last month's broadcast. You can see that grouse. I'm sorry we're having so many technical difficulties this evening. Sometimes because we live in a remote area, you know, Jackson Hole is not in the middle of civilization. Our upload and download speeds can cause some hiccups, and that can corrupt the video, and I think that might have been what happened in this case, where now it's not going to play. So sorry about that, guys. Let's see here. Oh, lots of good answers on our trivia question. Oh man, some of you guys are smart cookies, particularly those of you who are getting the H. I'm very impressed. That's pretty awesome. Dawn asks, any additional cases of CWD on the refuge? Dawn, the number one way we find cases of CWD is by testing carcasses. So either animals that were killed by hunters, and we can take those lymph nodes, or we can take the root of teeth, or we can even take brainstem tissue because, of course, CWD, chronic wasting disease, lives in nervous tissue, or animals that have been killed during the winter, so wolf kill and things like that. We can test them there. But I suspect, because the vast majority of the tests happen in the fall during the hunting season, we may not see another case until fall and until that testing. And if it's rare enough still in the ecosystem, we may not even see it then. It may be a year or two before we have another case. At least I hope so. We certainly know it's present in the ecosystem, but how widespread, hard to say without surveillance testing. So good question, and we don't know. But of course, anybody who is hunting elk or any member of that deer family in the Great Yellowstone ecosystem, make sure you definitely get your animal tested, both so that you can help us with our surveillance of the disease and our scientific understanding, but also to make sure that your meat is safe as well. So thanks much for that. Let's see here. Susan, great question. What will those early rising bears eat? That is a really good question. So one of my favorite times of year to run multi-day programs up into the Lamar Valley and Hayden Valley is right around now, because grizzly bears will find animals who perished during the winter, and the cold has preserved that meat. And you'll sometimes have these male grizzlies just like sitting on an animal for, oh gosh, like a week or more. By the time we get to late April, the warm temperatures will begin to spoil those carcasses and those opportunities will disappear. But for a while, they're kind of way out in the open and they're just sitting ducks, and they're very easy to find in many ways as they kind of gather around those carcasses. So that would be their first goal, is winter kill carcasses. 399 has a real preference for fish. And what she likes to do, she likes to go to areas near the Snake River and in sort of areas that branch off the Snake River where the water was really, really shallow. And shallow water, when it freezes, not only does not just the surface freeze, but it can freeze all the way through, which can kill the fish by just freezing the fish. But also enough of the water can freeze that it can create an oxygen deficit. And there's just not enough oxygen in the environment for the fish to survive the winter. And so they're killed, but it's, floating under the ice. So if you're a big bear, it's a simple matter of just bashing the ice and grabbing the fish and eating it. And it's a pretty good open buffet. Pretty clever. I haven't seen a lot of grizzlies who do that practice. I think she's so old and experienced that she's learned to do that when maybe some other bears don't have that opportunity. Now, by the end of April, early May, we do start to see our first greening up opportunities. And so things like spring beauty, Indian potato plant, glacier lily, all those sorts of plants are really important. They've got starchy bulbs, think kind of like a tulip or a daffodil. And that crunchy starchy bulb is really an important food source for those early awakening bears. So hopefully that answers that. Let's see. Oh, Bill, you're just giving us a chance to brag, and I appreciate it. He says, how did Jackson Hole Ecotour Adventures do in the Best of Jackson Hole this year? We won. Because apparently we're the best of Jackson Hole. At least we sure think so. We got gold for Best Wildlife Tour and Wildlife Operator. We also got silver for Most Environmentally Friendly Business, which we're really, really excited about. That was a new win for us this year. That's not a category historically that we have been involved in, but of course we've been an environmentally friendly business for, since 2008, since our founding, of course. We give 2.5% back to local causes. We're carbon neutral through the Carbon Fund, so we're pretty excited about that. And then, of course, our intrepid owner and much beloved boss, Taylor Phillips, got bronze for Best Boss, which really actually has us excited because the gold and silver bosses who won had hundreds of employees. They were the owners of multiple restaurants. And so it's a lot easier when you have hundreds of employees and voting for you for Best Boss versus our very small crew here at Ecotours. And so we were pretty thrilled to see him win for the second year in a row that bronze, and really, really well deserved for him. He does take excellent care of us. So really fun. Gold, silver, bronze, but we definitely won Best Tour Operator, which is pretty awesome because I think there's there's some ridiculous number of tour companies these days, and there is a difference, and we really believe firmly that is clear. But that said, we aren't necessarily always that good at tooting our own horn, so it's nice to have somebody else doing it for us. So thanks for asking about that. Let's see here. Let's see here. Tracy, back to the should she book a trip? This is in June, I believe. So sunrise or sunset. Tracy, believe it or not, they're both awesome. It's a matter of personal preference as long as you're going out into crepuscular light. So crepuscular is just Latin for dawn or dusk, right? So early morning and late evening are the best times to see wildlife, which is why we have our morning and evening programs with the sun. We don't have a lot of success in dead noon in the summertime when it's hot, seeing animals that are reliant on the cool early morning light, and of course the predators who enjoy those animals as well. So not necessarily one is better than the other. If you're looking for a specific guide, they may be more available at sunrise or sunset. You definitely can request a guide, guys. And they definitely will do their best to accommodate. Some of them work more evenings and some of them work more mornings. So something to consider for sure. Maddie, for instance, in our comment section, who's moderating our comment section tonight, is a diehard sunset crewer. He runs and is our senior guide for our sunset crew gang. So for instance, if you wanted him, I would recommend a sunset program. Laura, for instance, who you saw today, does all trip types, but she's far more available for a sunrise program. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing while you're visiting, and of course if you have a particular guide you'd like to see, and of course different wildlife are going to be better at both times. So great question. Bethany asks, are the wolves denning yet? It looks like some of the females are showing now based on recent photos. Bethany, they are definitely showing. There's no question that there are some pregnant females out there. They should be exploring denning options. They should be thinking about digging dens. But the pups aren't born quite yet. Any day now, really soon, the pups will be born, but we're not quite there yet. Gestation for wolves is really, really fast. Breeding season's January, February. So depending on when they bred and when they came into estrus during that period, we're going to go ahead and see those pups born in April. But whether that's early or late April kind of just depends a little bit on when that happens. So great question. Let's see here. Linda says, can you put the picture up again for the trivia question? Linda, of course I can. All right, here, everybody ready? And the question is, what bird is this? What species of bird is it? You get one entry for that, and then you can get a second entry if you tell me how old this bird is. So everybody who missed it earlier, there you go, there's that. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's see. Great question. Barbara asks, will 399 have taught that fishing behavior to her cubs? Yes, she definitely has, because her daughter Grizzly Bear 610 does do the same behavior, but not as well. Now she's younger. 399 is in her mid-20s, and 610 is, oh gosh, I want to say 12 or 13 years old now at this point. And so she might get better with age, but I have noticed that 610 is the only one I see practicing that behavior. There may be some male bears, of course, who don't hang out in front of people as often, who also do the practice, but I've never seen them. I've only ever seen that one offspring of 399 attempt it, and her success rate's a little lower. I do watch the cubs when they're with their mother, when they're with 399 over the years. I've watched them for years trying to do it, but the problem is younger cubs have a hard time kind of getting through that ice until it gets pretty rotten at the end of the season. You kind of have to be a big bear to be able to kind of punch through and grab the fish. So it doesn't really work when you're a cub, and so it's hard to practice, I think, when they're young. And so, yeah, I'd love to see more of them acquire that behavior. But it's an interesting question you're asking overall, because historically, grizzly bears relied in Yellowstone on the Yellowstone Lake cutthroat trout, Yellowstone River cutthroat trout, to feed on, particularly during spawning. And as Yellowstone cutthroat trout have dwindled, that food source, which is very important to them, has become problematic. But long before that happened, we know historically that was an important food source. Think a little bit like Alaskan Kodiak bears eating salmon, the same kind of idea during their spawning period. But early visitors to Yellowstone, of course, extensively fed bears. And then if you came to visit Yellowstone in the 1920s, you would get every evening, you'd go sit in the grandstands behind the hotels and watch while the hotels fed the bears garbage. The mother bears learned to take their cubs to these garbage sites, and they lost a lot of their natural feeding behaviors, and they lost that fishing behavior, because learning how to fish is a complicated skill that takes many, many years to perfect. You know, it's a lot easier as going and getting human garbage. And so when we eliminated the garbage dumps in Yellowstone National Park, the hope was that the grizzly bears would go back to feeding on some of these native food sources that they historically had gone for, including spawning cutthroat trout. We have not seen a lot of that. They seem to have lost the skill. If you don't learn it from your mother, it seems like you probably aren't going to reacquire it very easily. The hope as time goes on that more bears will reacquire the skill with time, but this is going to be centuries probably before we have a viable grizzly population feeding on cutthroat trout. In the meantime, our cutthroat trout population is in perilous condition because Yellowstone Lake has an infestation of Lake Mackinac, Lake Michigan trout, which we don't exactly know how it got to Yellowstone Lake, but was first seen in 1981 in Yellowstone Lake and has grown. Population's grown tremendously, and unfortunately their primary food source are Yellowstone cutthroat trout. And the reason this is a problem is the Lake Michigan, Lake Mackinac trout actually spawn in deep water where they're not necessarily benefiting animals like grizzly bears and other animals that need that as a food source. Cutthroat trout spawn up into the tributaries and streamlets in Yellowstone National Park, and they're an important food source for lots of different animals. Grizzlies are just one, and so as these lake trout are eating the cutthroat trout, fewer and fewer of them are surviving and being able to spawn. Yellowstone National Park is working very hard on this problem. They actually deep water net, because lake trout live at a different layer of the lake than cutthroat trout. You can actually just net in that layer and have a pretty high success rate getting some of these lake trout. But it's going to require continuous netting for a very, very long time to get those lake trout under control. In the meantime, the cutthroat trout population is really struggling and is definitely a candidate for listing in the Endangered Species Act. So the reason all of this matters is I've never seen a lot of bears do what 399 does in Grand Teton National Park. And the reason that is promising to me internally is if 399 either learned that from her mother, or even better, taught herself how to do that and is able to teach her offspring how to do that, that gives me hope that some of these bears up in Yellowstone National Park will relearn how to eat spawning cutthroat trout as that population begins to do a little better with the success of the deep water netting program. So I got a little bit on a tangent there, but it's kind of an interesting side note with this whole 399 eating fish early season thing. So kind of an interesting little thing there. Let's see here. Maddie says he vows to ride his bike every day. Maddie, I'm going to try to ride my bike all summer too, so we'll see how we do, and we'll move ourselves up that best environmentally friendly business, see if we can't get gold next year and reduce a little bit more of our emissions. I like it. Let's see here. It's a great question. Can you see northern lights from the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem? Maddie, thank you for repeating this. It looks like maybe somebody asked it and I skipped over it by accident. I didn't see it. My speed reading missed it. The answer is yes, you can. It's not as common as more northern latitudes, but you absolutely can. The best way to determine a good evening for northern lights, we did have a really, really good view of them. It was almost a week and a half ago now, is to go to the Northern Lights prediction and observatory page in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's page. They have a wonderful aurora prediction page, which does a really, really good job. And what they do is they use the European Space Agency's solar observatory, the one orbiting the sun, to understand when coronal mass ejections happen from the sun and they're able to basically predict 2 or 3 days in advance based on that space weather and the sun weather, whether those coronal mass ejections are going to go ahead and bombard the Earth's atmosphere and give us an opportunity to go ahead and excite the atmosphere enough to give us some opportunities for northern lights. The bigger the solar storm, the better the opportunity you can see northern lights at more and more southern latitudes. And the way that this prediction in this forecast is made is through what's called the KP scale. So just like anything in weather, space weather has a scale of severity as well. A KP 0 would be, it'd be very difficult to see northern lights anywhere, including at the North Pole. KP 1 through 3, northern Canada, northern Russia probably will have good opportunities for northern lights. Once you get past 3, the very northern parts of the United States, of course, Alaska not included in this, they're KP 1 through 3. But 4 or 5 opportunities to see northern lights in places like the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem would be sort of the furthest south you'd see on that 4 or 5. And then once you hit KP 6, it's a big deal. Definitely good northern light opportunities, most likely to see northern lights, assuming it's a clear night, in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and some opportunity to see northern lights south of that. Once we get into the KP 7s and 8s, those are kind of once a decade, once every 20-year kind of events. They're pretty rare, but you certainly would have an opportunity to see northern lights even further south. And then those KP 9s and 10s allow you to see northern lights down in places like Florida and even down to the equator. You don't actually want KP 9s and 10s because then you actually have to put special shielding up at the International Space Station to protect from the bombardment. Satellites have to go into a special protective mode, and there's even an opportunity, if you get much past those 9s and 10s, to do damage to our electrical grid and our power systems. And so while it would be really pretty to see northern lights in Miami, maybe not too great for our power grid and for the International Space Station to have big solar storms like that. Now, corona northern and southern lights, right? Because we have the northern lights, and we in the South Pole have southern lights as well. They are dependent on the solar cycle, and so the sun actually has a 10-year cycle, which we don't know why, but it does, in terms of the intensity of solar storms. And we're moving back into a more intense cycle. We're sort of slowly making our way towards a solar maximum again. So we're going to have more and more opportunities over the next couple of years. But yeah, hopefully that sort of was a very quick whirlwind explanation of solar weather and how one goes about predicting whether they can see the aurora. What's wonderful about it is usually you can get about 2 days advance notice that it's going to be good. And you can even set up on the NOAA website for space weather, and I don't know if I'm putting Maddie on the spot if he's going to be able to find this or not, but you can actually send yourself emails if it gets above a certain KP level predicted, so that you get an email and go, oh cool, in 2 days we might have a good opportunity for northern lights. So something you might want to set up. I actually have a bunch of these kind of cool email setups in my inbox because I'm a giant nerd. Whenever there's an earthquake in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem that is above about a 4.5, or 4.0, I mean, I definitely have an alert sent to my inbox because it could actually change eruption times for Old Faithful, and I want to be prepared if I'm headed up to Yellowstone with guests. I also just kind of want to know that there was a big eruption in Yellowstone because, of course, it is a very seismically active place. We have about 10 earthquakes a day in Yellowstone. Most of those you can't feel, they're not a big deal, but every once in a while we have one of those bigger ones. I also have an alert just because I want to know if there is a major earthquake anywhere in the world, and the U.S. Geological Survey sends me those alerts, and it's just kind of fascinating sometimes to see those. So there's your nerdy moment of the evening, I suppose, but a little bit there about space weather. Let's see here. Bethany, great question. She says, how many of the stream headwaters have been purged of the invasive trout now? I believe they were systematically dealing with them. They are. They're using a piscicide to kill all of the trout in these streams, and then going ahead and reintroducing cutthroat trout after they've gotten rid of the lake trout. They're making their way through. The problem, of course, is that lake trout slowly but surely can certainly recolonize those areas. So it's just going to be an ongoing battle and an ongoing effort. The good news is we are slowly making progress. It's looking a little grim there in the late 90s, but we're definitely slowly making a little progress, and cutthroat trout populations are doing better. So great question. Great question, Don. He says, what did it do with the lake trout they net? Just wondered. And wouldn't it be wonderful if that was made available to the general public to eat? The problem is there are not enough people in Yellowstone to be eating all of those trout. So they do have an interesting program where some of the Yellowstone lake trout have actually gone back to Lake Michigan, where the Lake Mackinac lake trout is actually in trouble in Lake Michigan. That's the great irony, is they're a great pest here and they're not doing well in their native zone. So we've actually flown some fish across the country to recolonize there and improve their genetics. But the vast majority of them are killed and aren't necessarily put to a good use. It's just too expensive to create fertilizer. And of course, if we're littering the shores of the lake with them, that could be a problem for human safety with grizzly bears. So we don't want to do that either. So wish there was a better way, but we're kind of wasting that biomass. All right, guys, I think I got everybody's questions. If you got any more, or for some reason I missed it, ask in the comment section. We'll definitely be checking it out all week. Guys, it's been such a pleasure spending this Wednesday with you. I hope you all have a wonderful month. We'll see you next month. And in the meantime, have a great time. Be safe out there. Have a really good spring. So long.